The first time I played Dark Souls 2, I was taken aback when I reached a particular bonfire, something we're accustomed to being a safe room, a place to save our progress and rest. But instead, my character was blasted backwards, accompanied by this loud sound effect and fire spreading everywhere. Instead of the usual menu appearing, something strange manifested in front of me. I really couldn't comprehend just what I was looking at. Some kind of knotted bark, tangled branches, surrounded by fire and this one pinpoint of a red glow. And to my shock, the prompt that appears is talk. The option to engage in a civil conversation with this chaotic-looking mass.
Young Harlow, do you wish to shed this curse? Then accept the fate of your ilk and face the trials that await you.
The magnificent voice that echoes with multiple layers rumbling in different pitches underneath. But before we get into it, I just want to let you know that this message is sponsored by Raycon. With the holidays coming up, you might already be thinking about gifts or maybe a little upgrade for yourself. If so, I'd recommend Raycon's Essential Open Earbuds. They're designed to keep you aware of your surroundings while still enjoying your favourite music or podcast. Perfect for a jog, taking a call on your commute, or just unwinding at home. And this Black Friday and Cyber Monday, you can save up to 30% off all Raycon audio products. With over 3 million happy customers and a 30-day happiness guarantee, Raycon delivers the same premium sound quality as the big brands, but at half the price. The Essential Open Earbuds give you crystal clear, balanced audio while sitting just outside your ear canal. That means you can stay tuned into what's happening around you without losing any of that listening quality. I use these to stay more alert and safe when I'm out and about, so if that's important to you too, then I really recommend them. One of my favourite things about them is the multi-angular hook design. You can rotate them into place for a comfortable and secure fit, whether you're exercising, doing chores, or taking a stroll. They're lightweight, flexible, breathable, and can even connect to multiple devices with multi-point connectivity, so you can switch between without any hassle. And the battery life is excellent. The earbuds themselves last up to 8 hours, and the case holds another 36 hours of charge. So I just pop them back in when I'm done, and they're ready for non-stop listening next time. Black Friday is around the corner. Raycon audio products are up to 30% off site-wide. From everyday essentials to the latest releases, it's the perfect time to upgrade your sound or get ahead on gifting. These early deals won't last long, so shop now before they're gone. Just click the link in the description or go to buyraycon.com/chaliceopen to save on Raycon audio products site-wide. That's buyraycon.com/chaliceopen for up to 30% off. Thank you, Raycon. Now let's get back to the lore. The curse that they speak of is presumably the undead curse that infects these lands. While this is technically a form of immortality, over the course of repeated dying and resurrecting, one will gradually lose their humanity. This state of being is referred to as becoming hollow, a mindless, doomed husk of one's former self. But you are told that if you want to break this curse, then you must be ready for the trials ahead. His voice is slightly taunting, and he does chuckle at you, continuing to give you these little nicknames.
Young Harlow, there are but two paths. Inherit the order of this world, or destroy it. Only a true monarch can make such a choice. Very few indeed have come even this far.
He's playing with you, recounting that many have tried what you are setting out to do, but all have failed. You can either choose to go along with the way of the world, or attempt to destroy it entirely. Those are your only two options. He sets you on a path to find someone called Vendrick, a monarch who apparently set out to do something similar. I've spoken about before how much of a shock it is when you finally do find Vendrick. It's your main objective, the first act of the game. You hear snippets of his victories, his reputation, and then when you do find him, he has regrettably turned hollow. Your main lead rendered useless, and this pit in your stomach forms as you wonder, well, what do I do now?
What drives you so to overcome this supposed curse?
The strange creature visits you again, and you can't help but think, if they knew of Vendrick's state, telling you to find him in order to make some sort of point.
Life is brilliant, beautiful. It enchants us to the point of obsession. Some are true to their purpose, they are shadows, flash in mind.
It seems that he is referring to Vendrick, now a shell. He goes on to mull over the motivations of humans, how people will strive forward regardless of what happens to them at any cost, if it is for a purpose, a reason to live. At this point, it becomes more clear that the strange being has taken a liking or interest in you, in your motivations.
Once the Lord of Light banished dark and all that stemmed from humanity, and then assumed a fleeting form. These are the roots of our world.
What he could be referencing here is the events of Dark Souls 1. The Lord of Light is most likely Gwyn. As a very sweeping summary of the events of the previous game, once there was this great big primordial fire that burst into being, aptly named the First Flame, and from it powerful souls were born, one of whom was Gwyn. This period of time was known as the Age of Fire, a very prosperous era of humankind. However, the First Flame, as flames do, began to fade, and Gwyn feared that if the flame died, then the world would be plunged into darkness.
And soon the flames did fade, and only dark remained. Thus began the Age of Men, the Age of Dark. However, Lord Gwyn trembled at the dark, clinging to his Age of Fire, and in dire fear of humans, and the Dark Lord who would one day be born amongst them. Lord Gwyn resisted the course of nature.
Gwyn gave himself as kindling to prolong the Age of Fire, and as such, the state of all humanoids became artificial, what was being referred to as fleeting form. It's my understanding that should the natural course of history unfold and the Age of Dark, or Man, occur, then all beings would revert to their hollow state, the default state of humankind. That's why when you die in Souls games, you become hollow. But Gwyn, for his multiple reasons, did not want this to happen, and this gives context to one of the most iconic lines of Dark Souls 2.
Men are props in the stage of life, and no matter how tender, how exquisite, a lie will remain a lie. Young Harlow, knowing this, do you still desire peace?
What he may be getting at here is that life is wonderful, and yet regardless of how beautiful the world we are experiencing is, it's a lie. This shouldn't exist. The Age of Man should have already begun, and with mankind in its true form. Because Gwyn prolonged the Age of Fire, life right now is a falsehood. Hence the metaphor of people being props and life as a stage. We are playing a part, a fiction. Now, I'm not going to go more into Dark Souls 1 because this is Dark Souls 2. But the crux of what you are being asked is, despite knowing this harsh truth of our existence, do you still desire peace? You can answer yes or no, but it doesn't matter what you choose. Either response elicits the same dialogue from the strange figure, getting in your head about what is it that you truly want.
You, neither born with great wisdom granted it by the Fates. What is it you seek? You cannot even say yourself.
I really like that he makes you second guess yourself, regardless of whether you understood the implications of the question or not, or just picked a random option. It does instill doubt or reflection in oneself. Now, at this point in the game, this creature still has no established title or name. A lot of people have affectionately referred to it as the Burning Bush, which is a pretty good description, and yet he speaks with this incredible wisdom, cynicism, and philosophy. Is this the average intelligence of a magic plant in the Dark Souls universe? Or is this a misleading guise?
Peace grants men the illusion of love. Shackled by falsehoods, they yearn for love, unaware of its grand illusion. Until the curse touches their flesh, we are bound by this yoke.
Again, he goes on about the illusion that has been created by this lord, that the lie everyone seems content in living. just because it is more peaceful that way to not ask questions. And he asks if that is wrong to do so, to be so willfully yet peacefully ignorant.
All men trust fully the illusion of life. But is this so wrong? A construction facade, and yet a world full of warmth and resplendence. Now, hello. Are you intent on shattering the yoke? Spoiling this wonderful falsehood?
And once again, kind of humorously, he says, are you going to be the one to ruin this idyllic dream for everyone? And once again, your answer does not change his response. It's almost like he knows that talk of what one wants to do or will do doesn't mean a thing until you are face to face with the reality of making that choice. It gives you some space as a player to decide what you really want at the end, to have time to mull it over, and he will continue to ask you what you are doing and why. Why does he care so much? Well, at this point, when you give your answer, you find out who the burning bush is.
I am Aldia. I sought to shed the yoke of fate, but failed. Now, I only wait an answer. Seek the throne. Seek light, dark, and what lies beyond.
Aldia. I think it's now appropriate to bring up the history of the Dark Souls 2 game versions. For those who didn't know, there are two versions of the game, what people refer to as Vanilla and Scholar of the First Sin Edition. When the game was originally released, Vanilla, when you light that first primal bonfire, you don't get thrown backwards. No one speaks to you, no one questions your purpose at staggered points throughout the game like this. There is no burning bush, there is no Aldia. Or rather, no NPC character who I've been showing thus far. There are mentions in the item descriptions of a figure called Aldia, which, depending on whether you are an item text enjoyer, might have picked up on some pieces on this strange character. But if you simply play through the whole of Vanilla DS2 without really paying attention to any descriptions or names, likely you wouldn't have the foggiest idea of who Aldia is or was. And I could be wrong, but I don't think any of the NPCs actually mention an Aldia, by name at least. That's why in the Scholar of the First Sin update, this character's inclusion changes a lot about the game's narrative and your journey as a player. At least in my opinion. I played the Scholar Edition for my first playthrough, doing so because of recommendation from other players, because not only does it include this new story, but quality of life updates, etc, etc. But now in retrospect, it's so hard for me to imagine playing DS2 without Aldia. So let me paint a picture of who this figure is from some descriptions alone. Terrible experiments were said to have taken place in a hidden manor in Drangleic. The mastermind presiding over the deeds was known as Lord Aldia. What kind of experiments? Well, let's start relatively tame. What about a shield with lumps? A homunculus mace. Don't ask what the lumps are. To find out more, we must go to the far eastern outskirts of Drangleic, where an old manor lies, now forgotten, as it should be. For the things that lurk there are better left unknown. This place, appropriately titled Aldia's Keep, was present in Vanilla DS2, which added to the mystery of its master's character. This place is very eerie, and when you discover that it's essentially an experimentation facility, it darkens the connotations of what you find here. Most notably is the endlessly stretching main hallway, rooms on either side filled with increasingly sinister beings, the majority of whom are imprisoned. You have basilisks, ogres, gargoyles, mimics, poison beetles, phantoms trapped behind a looking glass, malformed, grotesque undead, and a particularly grim cell which features these hairless dogs bathing in corrosive acid. It's a most disturbing zoo of all sorts of creatures subject to so-called research. And it's not just beasts who are preyed on, humans too. Those invited to the manor disappeared, replaced over time with malformed beasts that roamed its halls. But first and foremost, this is Aldia's doing. But why on earth would anyone accept an invitation to such an insane place? Well, that might be because Aldia is a lord. Specifically, they say that Lord Aldia was the king's elder brother and helped found Drangleic, but he later lost interest in the land's fortunes. So of course, an invitation to the manor of royalty could not go unanswered. In addition, the floor plan of Aldia's keep is quite deceptive. It starts with this wide entrance garden into a grand foyer with a dual solid staircase, and only in the back, hidden behind a double door, is the experimentation grounds, so it could keep one fooled long enough until they were thrown into a holding cell. More sadly, the connection between Vendrick and Aldia is further revealed here. They are brothers and have such an interesting past, having created the kingdom together, but now, look at them. King Vendrick condemned his own elder brother to the mansion. They both sought the truth, but through different means, and their fervour meant the eventual withering of their familial ties. So it's implied here that Vendrick maybe knew of his brother's wicked experiments, or at least disagreed with his attitude and behaviour that he was displaying in the pursuit of knowledge. And because Vendrick was king and Aldia wasn't, he had the power to lock his brother away for fear of what he might be capable of. And on the other hand, it's likely Aldia disagreed about how blind his brother was. Earlier in his monologue about the illusion of life, he mentioned that men yearn for love, unaware of its grand illusion. This could have a few interpretations to it, but one could be the illusion Vendrick fell under when he married Nashandra, as the final default boss is technically Nashandra, having tried to manipulate Vendrick and then you to secure her a powerful soul so she can access the throne. Was Aldia aware that his brother was being used? And did it make him cynical of love? Anyway, it's clear that the two brothers had totally different objectives and methods. Aldia's much more chaotic, gruesome and selfish. But he was not alone. He had cultists who did his bidding, wearing strange masks. Warlocks in Aldia gave rise to wicked things, and even cast forbidden rituals upon themselves. No one knows if they were born mad or if their own misdeeds drove them over the edge. People who were either already addled in the mind or became that way through acts they committed for Aldia. But they weren't just grunts. Some of these people were great sorcerers. Several of the greatest minds converged in Aldia to weave strange new rituals. But rumours suggest that during the course of their work, their thoughts were not their own. You see, Aldia was attempting to uncover the secret of life itself, and viewed the undead as a key to this mystery. Now, how he and his workers went about that isn't specifically stated, trade secrets and all, but based on the various species found in his keep and the tools, conditions and state of the place, you could probably hazard a guess. Some kind of fusion, amalgamation testing happened, with a lot of failures, resulting in many sacrifices being made for science. The robes of his warlocks and acolytes are described as being designed to bear the brunt of the ritual sacrifices gushing blood, and to prevent from slipping on the blood. What is particularly interesting is that this armour has the name Dragon Acolyte set. Dragons, how are they connected? You see, one of the caged beasts, the enhanced undead, can drop an item called a malformed skull, the skull of some unidentified creature, possibly the skull of a dragon. This creature, based on its label, used to be a normal undead, a person, but probably through Aldia's experimentation became this, not quite a dragon, but no longer human. Aldia's connection with dragons goes a lot further, as at the very end of the Nightmare Hallway, there is a dragon. It appears to be imprisoned in its own way. Despite the arena having a hole at the top, the cage's sides are lined with spiked bars, probably preventing it from flying off. Or perhaps it doesn't have the free will to fly away. Much like the acolytes who have lost their minds, perhaps part of Aldia's research was to harness the power of dragons. As this dragon in particular, called the Guardian Dragon, its sole description wonders if the dragons watch over the land of their own will. Or are they in the grip of one of Aldia's spells? If Aldia had that kind of power at his disposal, that would make him a pretty powerful adversary indeed. And funnily enough, one of the instances where Aldia appears to you is in the Dragon's Eyrie, the area immediately after Aldia's Keep, connected via the elevator. And in the description of the cursed bones that make up a particular shield, it's confirmed that Aldia indeed attempted to recreate a dragon, but after some time was not heard from again. So, was Aldia successful? Well, a popular theory is that he was. Specifically, at the end of Dragon Eyrie, you are granted an audience with an ancient dragon. Now, this isn't a boss fight by default. You have to go out of your way to attack the dragon to make it hostile. And should you defeat it, good luck, eventually it will drop its soul. But not a dragon soul, a giant soul. I mean, technically dragons are giant size, but more importantly, all the other instances of receiving giant souls happen when retrieving from the corpse of a giant. As we theorized earlier, Aldia likely tried to combine species, so if he somehow managed to combine the draconic parts with a giant and succeeded, this resulted in a magnificent feat of science. This is supported by the scattered giant corpses in Aldia's Keep, the mention of him doing so in an item description, and the fact that more than one NPC alludes to the dragon not being what it seems. The ancient dragon is mysteriously neutral as a character, but it does choose to communicate to you that the curse of life is the curse of want, an intriguing albeit familiar sentiment. It also gives you the ability to go into memories, scenarios of the past, 3 of which involve the giants, specifically around the time of the giants' invasion of Drangleic, as well as one involving the memory of a dragon. There's definitely some connection here that this dragon is not typical, but regardless, the way it came into existence is indefensible. Aldia stopped at nothing to understand the meaning of life, even if that meant creating artificial life himself. After his forces were done with dissecting bodies of the victims of their experimentation, they presumably took these scraps and leftovers of various animal body parts to make armor and weapons. You have a fragment of a giant shell, a crustacean pincer, and really coldly put, the skull of some creature that outlived its usefulness for experimentation. As a side note, something that stuck out to me was that some of these weapons were described as developed in Aldia. And at first when I read this, I thought the use of the word in was a little strange. And then I remembered what we know Aldia is now. He's a burning structure. Why not use him like a forge, so to speak? Anyway, the final victim of Aldia I want to mention before moving on from Aldia's Keep is a particular fellow trapped behind a magic wall in the manor's entrance hall.
No, please, don't come near me. Nothing good will come of it.
This whimpering fellow will beg you to go away. I was already aware that there were some minor differences that occur when you are hollow versus with your humanity restored, but this one was probably the best of all. If you talk to him while hollow, you will get quite the opposite interaction.
Well, you're nicely hollowed, aren't you? Are you tormented by memories? Burdened by guilt? Now the question, are you ready for more? If you are, then we ought to talk.
This much more eloquent individual seems to differentiate himself from the person you were just speaking to, referring to him as a vessel, and you learn why he might have ended up here.
Long ago, this naive vessel of mine set about devising new spells. The fool dreamt of bringing new forms of magic into the world. But instead, he created me. Mostly by chance, but he did a fine job, I must say.
This is Royal Sorcerer Navlan, whose title and whereabouts may imply he was responsible for researching magic on behalf of Aldia. As we know, Aldia was interested in life, so it kind of makes sense that through the sorcerer's ventures, he ended up manifesting this other terrible being inside of him. It does say that the terrible deeds carried out in Aldia led to the unintentional birth of several shadowy things, all of them eerily malformed. And as we find Navlan imprisoned with instructions not to release him under any circumstances, we can assume that that didn't exactly go to plan. because if you release him or heed his desires, the being inside of Navlan longs to hunt and kill others. So in a twist of irony, trying to create life actually resulted in a being who wants others to die. So now we've finished talking about the horrors that are hidden within Aldia's manor. Imagine that in the release version of DS2, you finish that area, get to the end of the game, face the final boss, claim the throne, link the fire, boom, game's done. Who was Aldia? What happened to him? Well, never mind. So now, compared to the Scholar of the First Sin edition, and having visited Aldia's manor, this recontextualizes so much. This burning bush figure that's been following you, questioning you, is the person who did all of this. But what on earth happened to him? I mean, we still don't know for sure, but looking back at all of those experiments and feats, we can only assume that this is what Aldia became through his desire to shed the yoke of fate, whether intentionally or not. Funnily enough, when I was making this video, one of my favourite channels, Bonfire VN, released a video physically dissecting Aldia's character model to understand it better. I've seen a fair few people agree that they see a head and the beginning of some shoulders, meaning that Aldia, scale-wise, is quite huge, with the rest of his body appearing beneath the earth. But even as I stare at this mass, there remains something so unrecognisable about it being a human being. Maybe because, if so, his anatomy is so distorted that his expression is of a level beyond agony, despite the nonchalant tone he speaks in most of the time. The fact that he consists of so many layers of what looks like tree branches, safe to say that Aldia really did shed his humanity in his pursuit to study it. As I've said before, in the original, you fight the final boss and then game over. But if you visit Vendrick first and defeat his poor hollow form in this later edition, then it will allow you to see Aldia one final time. You see, upon discovering the truth of what happened to Vendrick, this gives you pause and lets you consider the weight that sat on the king's shoulders. He discovered that his people could not all be cured of the undead curse, that the fire would fade, and that his wife, Nashandra, only saw him as a vessel for power to claim herself. Despite being the king, he probably felt so weak in this moment, unable to stop the grand design of the universe, and so all he could do was lock himself away in refusal to continue prolonging the Age of Fire and to stop Nashandra from claiming the first flame for herself. Only when you unlock the Throne of Want, she will follow and thank you for being a worthy soul, and attempt to defeat you. As a fragment of dark, all she lusted for was power. So this would have been the final boss. Only now you know the truth and the king's decision. What do you do with that knowledge?
You, conqueror of adversities. Give us your answer.
From the earth rises a giant, flaming Aldia, and he is the last being to stand in your way. In my opinion, it doesn't appear that he wishes to oppose your decision, but merely tests to see your resolve. All this time he has been asking, what do you want? This is his final test. And here you can see some of the magic and powers he has clearly studied. It's ironic that despite his disdain for the flame, his fighting style does revolve around fire. He engulfs himself in flames, making him untouchable, propelling fiery tree trunks up from the earth and summoning fireballs in your direction. This would align with pyromancy being an Aldian rite. The description of a similar spell exclaims, what could possibly justify such an excessive destructive power? In all likelihood, the madmen of Aldia never even questioned the need. Aldia was a man with much to lose, and yet as you defeat him, he doesn't drop any souls. No boss soul, nothing. Nothing at all. He seems quite at peace with the truth of his strange existence.
I lost everything, but remain here patiently. The throne will certainly receive you, but the question remains. What do you want? Tell me. Light, dark, or something else entirely?
Now, this is the point where you have another ending to choose from. As before, there was no choice. And this is the final test Aldia puts you to, as he says, the throne is waiting for you. But is that what you want? And if you say no, I don't want this, you can walk away, leave the throne of want, and reject the cycle of linking the flame as the other monarchs have done. And when you do so, there is this tone in Aldia's voice which really struck something within me the first time I heard it.
There is no path. The old things like you which you done. What could possibly await us?
There's this tinge of surprise, a slight mirth, and also genuine curiosity. As he theorizes, there isn't anything beyond the Age of Fire, the Age of Dark. Is there? What could possibly come after that, in the unknown? And despite this not knowing, it seems that Aldia is kind of happy and perhaps even proud of you doing this reckless, albeit noble act.
And yet pursued insatiably, such as our fate.
And as the flames fade, very appropriately at the end of the cutscene, that is where Scholar of the First Sin ends. And I've said this a fair few times now, but I can't imagine playing this game without Aldia. I adore the way in which some of his philosophical lines have stuck with me since finishing the game. That no matter how you justify something, if that something is a lie, then nothing will change that. That we can exist in the same old cycle, day after day, thinking the same thing, amounting to nothing, challenging nothing. There are some things in life that we cannot know, but that doesn't mean we can't try. And I'm not saying you should go experimenting and fill your house with genetically spliced organisms like Aldia did, but I would say don't be satisfied with what you're told is enough. Go out and seek your fate bravely. Thank you everyone for watching. Before I wrap this up, I wanted to shout out the Dark Souls Archthrones mod and its team. If you don't know, it's a huge total overhaul of Dark Souls 3 made by an incredibly talented group of people. I'm also honoured to voice one of the characters in the mod. If you want to check it out, there's a free demo available. The team pours an unbelievable amount of time, skill and passion into bringing this project towards its full release, and that's especially important right now as the project lead, Big Boss, shared that it's a tough time right now balancing both medical costs and the ongoing development of this mod. It really is insane and I'd love to see the full thing. So if you'd like to help out, you can do so through Ko-Fi and Patreon. Every little helps here. And again, the demo and eventual full mod are completely free. So if you want to check out a brand new story set before the events of Dark Souls 3, then definitely check out the fan mod Archthrones. Links will be in the description. Thank you guys.